Good evening, and thank you for joining us for No Fear Negotiation, How to Take the Fear Out of Negotiating. I am Mary Staver, HR Executive of Royal Neighbors of America and Vice President of Royal Neighbors Foundation. Royal Neighbors' mission is to provide women and those they care about with valuable insurance and financial products, financial education, member benefits, and opportunities to connect with others in their community. As a 501c3 public charity dedicated to building women's futures through financial education, the goal of Royal Neighbors Foundation is to reach out to women across the country and provide them with resources to help them become more financially secure. These resources are provided free of charge thanks to the generous donors who believe in empowering women financially. And it's because of this focus of empowering women financially that we have partnered with certified financial planner Lauren Lyons Cole to bring you valuable information on how to manage your finances and secure your financial future. Of course, most of us are interested in money in one way or another, but tonight's webinar is all about negotiating for more of it. So we hope you find this next half hour valuable and motivating. But before we get started, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to go through a few features of the webinar. Sarah?
Great. Thanks, Mary. Hi, everyone. Glad you're with us tonight. I wanted to go through a little bit of the features of the webinar. You'll notice on the left side of your screen there is a chat box. Go ahead and type in any questions that you have throughout the webinar, and we'll make sure that Lauren covers that. We'll also have an opportunity at the end for a Q&A where we will go through that. We will also have some polls throughout the webinar, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are watching us tonight in a group, so don't worry about completing the poll based on a consensus. You can either skip them or just the person who is working the webinar, go ahead and answer it with your own circumstances. So I am going to go ahead and pull up a test poll. One second, and we will see how many of you are watching us tonight. We want to get an idea of how big your groups are. So answer quickly if it's just you, if there's 2 to 4 of you, 5 to 7, 8 to 10, or if there's over 10 of you in your group watching us tonight. So we'll give you a couple minutes there. Looking good. So the majority are watching it individually, which is great. And thanks for doing that. So at this time, I would like to introduce Lauren. She is a financial expert that has been featured on the Today Show, CBS This Morning, and several other television shows as a financial expert. And we are very proud to be partnering with her. And I will turn it over to Lauren. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Mary. Thank you guys so much for introducing me. And hi to everyone listening at home. I am so excited that you're joining us. And we have so many big groups tonight, which is really exciting. We always love our big groups because, you know, when we're talking about money, it's helpful to have other people around to talk about money with, especially afterwards. You have a lot of momentum and excitement. So I want to do a quick few shout outs. I know we've got the students with Darcy at is it Augustana College? Augustana? The
Augustana.
Augustana. Okay, so hi to all of you ladies. So excited that you're joining us. There's a student in the Sigma Phi Epsilon sorority in Illinois College in Jacksonville, Illinois. Hello, ladies. And the members of the Sororitimus International of the Americas, which is like the best name I've ever heard for an organization. So hello to all of you. And last but certainly not least, I want to say hello to the ladies of Vital Essence. And to all of you who are watching individually as well, we are so happy that you're joining us. And I saw quite a few of the comments before we got started saying that some of you, this is your first time joining a meeting like this. So hopefully we keep it fun and engaging, and hopefully you don't have any technical issues. So if you do, certainly put a chat up there, and I'm sure that Sarah or someone will help out. And another shout out to the Brom Area Community Center volunteers. Hopefully I said that right too. So hello to all of you guys watching from your big groups. This topic tonight is really, really exciting. It's really important. I cannot wait to talk about this with all of you. It's something that's very close to my heart because, especially as women, we know that negotiation can be a little bit of, an anxiety-causing topic. So it's a really good thing to talk about, and I hope that everyone can walk away from this tonight feeling more equipped to have the tools to actually be able to negotiate, whether it's for a raise at, your current job, if you want to get a new job, or if you're looking to buy a new car, even if you want to just get a good deal at something at the store next time you go to buy a new piece of furniture or something like that. So this should be a pretty good topic. And actually, we're going to start with a poll because I'm kind of curious to see how many of you guys out there, I keep saying you guys, and I'm like, Lauren, stop saying you guys. I'm going to say you ladies because this is all women, I think. So sorry about that. But anyway, before we get started, I just want to quick throw up a poll and ask how many of you have negotiated something. So it might be a job offer, it could be a raise, it could be a new purchase, anything you've ever negotiated. So whether you've never done it before or you've done it a few times, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, or just more times than you can remember. Oh, cool. It's pretty spread out, actually. It looks like definitely got a few people who have never negotiated before. Some people, it seems like, are total pros and they've done this a bunch of times. And then a good bit of people who have done it a little bit, but we can always get better. There's always more to learn when it comes to negotiation. Very cool. Thank you. So why bother negotiating? This is the big question because for so many of us, if you are someone who has ever sat down for a negotiation, and if you're the people who've never done it before, you probably experience this just thinking about it. When you sit down to negotiate, it's like your hands get all clammy and it's like your voice raises up a few octaves. I don't know why that happens. For me, my face gets really red and I start sweating. It's inevitable. So I totally understand. Negotiating causes fear. You're not alone if you experience that. So why even bother? Why push through the fear and strike out on these conversations? Well, there's a few different reasons. So we usually think about, especially in America, this is less true maybe in other countries, but we think about prices as being very fixed. So if you see a price tag on something, it's very normal to think that is the price tag. But as it turns out, prices are not that fixed. I mean, you can negotiate, literally, and they say anything's negotiable. It really is true. So, in fact, my aunt shared a story with me recently, which I think is so awesome. She was at Lowe's, looking for patio furniture, and it was off season, and there were stacks of these chairs, and she was like, oh, I really need some new patio chairs. And they were on sale. I think it was for there were 6 of them, and they were $15 each. And she was just sort of kidding around with the, the salesperson or whoever works at Lowe's, and she was like, hey, I'll give you $75 for all 6. And he was like, okay, and rung them up, and that was it. And so, she saved a little bit of money there, and it may not have been much, but it's awesome that she asked, and it's awesome that she got a discount. So negotiating even in big box stores where you might not think you can, it is possible, and it can really add up over time. Plus, another point that we have here, why bother negotiating? It really does make us nervous. So the more we do it, the better we get at it. So even practicing on something as small as that, even if the thought occurs to you, but you're kind of afraid to say it out loud, make yourself say it out loud, because every time you do, you'll get a little bit better. And it never, it's always going to be a little bit scary, but every time you do it, it gets a little bit easier for the next time. So those little small examples like that one I gave are actually really great opportunities to practice, because who cares if the person says no? You weren't expecting it anyway. It's a very, it's low risk. The other thing is, if we're thinking about it from a perspective of purchasing, but also especially in the workplace, we're not very often just offered things. How often does your boss walk up to you and say, hey, I baked these cookies just for you. You're welcome. People don't do that. They don't give us stuff that we want. Even if we're thinking in our head, man, I really want cookies. No one's going to give those to you. So it's the same thing when it comes to your salary or when it comes to more responsibility at work, a promotion. People aren't going to just hand them to you. You really have to ask for it. And the people who go after those things and who ask for what they want are the people who get those things. It's not because they're smarter. It's not because they're more talented. It's not because they're, better at kissing up to the boss. No, it's because they're asking. So you may not see that conversation going on behind closed doors, but I promise you it's happening. It's not just getting handed out willy-nilly. The other interesting thing that I find with negotiation is, I think this is really normal as women. We're relationship oriented, and so it can be hard. We don't want to offend our boss. We don't want, or the salesperson at Lowe's or the car salesperson. We don't want those people to think that we're being pushy or aggressive. We don't want to offend them or think we don't appreciate what they've already done for us. So, sometimes we'll hold back on negotiating just for those reasons. But as it turns out, negotiating doesn't offend the other person. It actually causes them to respect you more. So especially for those of you out there who have never negotiated before, you can't be afraid of taking that risk, of putting yourself out there. Because even if they say no, they're going to see you as a type of person who cares about their own self-worth. And if you care about your own self-worth, chances are you care about the business that you're working for. And that's a good thing for a boss. Even if they can't give you what you're asking for, they're going to be happy. That's right, Royal Neighbors Foundation, know your worth. You have to know what you're worth. And your boss needs to know that. And if your boss knows that you know that, that's a good thing all around, no matter what the outcome is of a negotiation. And of course, we've already talked about practice makes perfect. The more you do it, the easier it gets. So always practice. Practice whenever you feel comfortable practicing. Something I think all women are pretty comfortable doing is when you're like at Ann Taylor or, Banana Republic or something, you're buying a new work outfit that you need. It's pretty easy to be like, hey, do you have any coupons back there that you could scan for me? That would be great. Or if you're at the grocery store or whatever. Those are easy things that I think many of us do as women. So even that counts as practice. That's a good thing to keep doing. I always do that. No shame. So, which brings me though to the most important, this is a very important reason. When we're talking about the workplace, the number one reason that you need to negotiate really does come down to money at the end of the day. And we're talking about big money. So, it's a little bit hard to tell perhaps from this graph, but there is a lot of money that ends up on the table when you don't negotiate. And this is true because of a few different factors. Now, let's say you're 22, you just graduated from college, maybe you're in college, like a lot of the people out there tonight, and you're going to be getting your first real job soon. If you are able to negotiate a $5,000 higher starting salary, which might sound like a lot, but when it comes to salaries, there's a range. It's not a fixed price. It's not like, maybe unless you're like a teacher or something. Sometimes there are fixed prices, but for most of us, there is a range, especially in the business world. So that, new job that you're accepting, it may be that the pay range is $35,000 to $40,000. And if they offer you $35,000, if you can get them up to $40,000, $5,000 more dollars, that's going to be wonderful because you're going to have a little bit of extra cash that year and you're going to be really happy about that. But over the course of a career, that $5,000, that's it, that $5,000 turns into $500,000 in extra earnings. So if you look at this, you can see on the graph that Christine is the purple and John is the blue. So this is just an example of two people who started out in the same job, but John got paid $5,000 more. Christine was making $45,000, he was making $50,000. Even if neither of them ever negotiates again, just that difference in the initial starting salary over time with, normal raises, a lot of people get raises with inflation, so you might get like 3% salary increase per year. Just with those standard increases for both of them, no more negotiating. John will literally earn $500,000 more dollars over the course of his career. So that's every year he's making a little bit more than Christine, and that grows exponentially. So it's not like it's $5,000 every year. It's $5,000 increasing with inflation every year which adds up over the course of a 40-year career, or I guess in this case 45-year career, it adds up to being $500,000. That is a lot of houses in some parts of the country. It's a lot of cars, it's your kids' college, it's your retirement savings. That money is a big deal. You cannot just leave it on the table. So if that doesn't motivate you to negotiate a little bit, I don't know what does. I mean, it's serious money. Okay, so hopefully you're feeling motivated, like, okay, I do need to figure out how I can do this whole negotiating thing. So it brings us to the next question, which is, what does negotiating actually look like? And I think, sometimes we see it in TV shows or in movies, and it seems very aggressive, or like sometimes people yelling at each other, or demanding and being very selfish, or coming off as seeming very, it doesn't always seem like a nice thing. But here's the interesting part about it. Negotiating is actually all about relationship building, which is something that women tend to be pretty good at. So we are really well suited for negotiating in a way that's a win-win. We want, let's just talk about it from a workplace perspective. You want your boss to get value out of you as an employee. And as a result, you earn some degree of value off of what they're making from you. So it's a symbiotic relationship. Everybody is winning here. It's not about you saying, I'm the best and I deserve this and you owe me this much money. It's really not that, and it shouldn't be. The way that the most effective negotiators are more likely to build a long-term relationship with their boss, and they're likely to put themselves in the other person's shoes. So think about, or we can use a new car purchase as an example too. If you're buying a new car, that salesperson absolutely wants your business. They want to put you in that car. So it is in their best interest to sell it to you. And it's in your best interest to get the best possible price for it. So it's a back and forth. It's kind of a dance. It's a little bit of a game. But at the end of the day, you're both going to win, because the salesperson's going to make the sale and you're going to get a car. So that's a good thing. It can't just be them telling you what the price is and you saying, yes, where do I sign? That's not the way that it works. It's really expected that you're going to go back and forth. Negotiating is part of the car buying process. It's part of the work process. So when you're in these positions and social mores suggest that negotiating is appropriate, you really need to step up to the plate and do that. But you do it in a way that's seeking a mutually beneficial solution. So, and I would also suggest that you look into reading some books. And I believe the Royal Neighbors Foundation actually has an amazing book by Linda Babcock that they're going to be raffling off. And so Linda Babcock, if you want to write her name down, she's an amazing researcher and author who's written great books trying to help women understand how to negotiate. So there are certainly resources out there you can use to, educate yourself. This isn't necessarily something that we're taught in school, unless you're a lawyer. So for the rest of us, we kind of have to teach ourselves. When it comes to negotiating, so whether it's my aunt going into Lowe's and looking at those chairs that she sort of wants, but wants for a cheaper price, or if it's with your boss or the used car salesman or whoever, the worst thing that can happen is that they can say no. You can ask and they can say no. The world's not going to end. You're not going to get fired. You can't lose because you've asked. As long as, if you go in there and are like, hey, and you're cursing and slamming doors, and you could get fired if you do it wrong. But as long as you go in there respectful and with the right attitude and outlining what you need to get out of the meeting, the worst thing that can happen is that they will say no. And that is not that bad. The interesting thing is, more often than not, people say yes. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with a female client who's come to me because they are interested in saving for retirement or learning about investing, or they want to find out about budgeting. And so often I end up sitting down with them and looking at their paycheck and realizing, you're not getting paid enough. I need these people, and especially when you get to sit down and really connect with someone, you see so much value, and I can see their value. But sometimes it's hard for us to step out of our own sense of self, identification and understand what we're really worth. And so it's important to do that and to not be afraid to ask. So many women that I've basically been the cheerleader through them trying to negotiate with their boss, I'd say 9 times out of 10, they get what they're asking for or very close to what they're asking for. And very rarely are they told no. And when they are told no, there's a solution to that too. And we're going to talk about that. So I'm actually kind of curious, before we go on to the next slide, for those of you who have negotiated before, do you get nervous? We're going to throw up a poll. Do you get nervous when you're asking for a raise or a discount? Like, do you feel like, does your face turn red, or do you start sweating? Like those sorts of nerve things that we can all experience. How many of you feel those things? Cool, so we're getting a lot of responses coming in, and the vast majority are saying yes. And there are, a handful of people who don't really feel nervous. So we need to find out what their secrets are. But yeah, so about 75% of you say that you do feel nervous. So here's the thing. Even for the people who said that they don't get nervous, they probably did the first time. So really, when it comes to negotiating, everybody gets nervous. Everybody. And there could be times that you feel very comfortable, and there could be times where you feel more nervous. It sort of depends on the situation, just like most things. But everybody is going to feel some degree of nerves when it comes to this. It's hard to ask for, to have these sorts of conversations, especially when it's someone who's in a position of power. So when you're young and you're just getting started, it's hard to approach this person who knows so much more than you do and is so much more experienced, and or if it's a salesperson at a car dealership, they're used to being in that environment. They negotiate every day. It's like old hat to them. They know what they're doing. For you walking in, it might be it could be the first car you've ever bought. So it's new. Whenever something's new, it's totally normal to feel nervous. There's a few things you can do to help yourself when you find that you're in a situation where you need to approach your boss or approach a salesperson and try to get a discount or negotiate something. So I'm a big fan of practicing in front of the mirror, or in this day and age, pull up your iPhone and record yourself, going through the negotiating process, because it's really, really helpful to see what you're doing that you may not realize you're doing. It's so interesting to see the reflection of your face and to hear how many times you're saying, I was thinking. If you hear yourself doing that, you can practice your way out of it. But the only way to know if you're doing it or not is to actually watch yourself. So practice in front of the mirror, or pull up your iPhone and record yourself. Or if you're more brave, this doesn't work for everyone, but you can certainly role play with a friend, which goes a long way. I love doing role plays with people because, they've been in the same position. They understand what it's like to be asking for a raise. They can play the boss and give you feedback on how you're presenting yourself, sitting up straight, making sure that you're speaking in concise sentences, making sure that you're breathing, in case you stop breathing and your face turns red. So role play with a friend if that's something that you're comfortable doing, especially a friend who might be a little bit more older, more experienced, or someone that you really respect their opinion. That makes it a little bit more valuable, but any practice will help. So the other thing is you just have to accept the fact that when you go in, if you're nervous, your voice might crack. You may not, present yourself the way that you've seen other people do it. It's not going to be perfect. You might say the wrong thing. That's totally okay. You cannot strive for perfection when it comes to this. Action beats perfection. You don't have to be perfect, but you do need to do it. So accept the fact that it's not going to be ideal. It'll get better every time. Practice does make it more perfect. So don't stress out and don't allow yourself to overlook doing something like this just because you're nervous. The other thing that's really helpful is to visualize the experience going well. I mean, this is a person that you know a lot of times. If it's your boss, it's someone you interact with every day. So picture it in your head. Picture conversations that you've had, just come at it from the angle that it's going to be a positive experience. No matter what they say, it's going to be a positive conversation. At the very least, you're going to show your boss that you respect yourself, that you know your worth, and that is going to cause them to respect you a little bit more. So really, there's no loss here. No matter what you do, it's going to be a step in the right direction, a little bit of movement forward. And I really believe this. Great quote from Eleanor Roosevelt: you gain courage and confidence from doing the things you think you cannot do. Especially if negotiating is something that makes you nervous. Every time you do it, you will feel so proud of yourself. Even if you get a no response, just the fact that you've asked, celebrate that, have a glass of champagne, have a brownie, whatever, have a bubble bath, whatever is going to make you feel like you've celebrated something, like you've had an accomplishment just by asking. You should absolutely feel good about that. And, it's kind of fun. Like, for those of you who have negotiated in the past, it's like you walk out of there like, ooh, look at me. I did that. That's awesome. It's a really good feeling. So it's a little bit scary, but from that fear, from the scariness, we get to walk out of there feeling a little bit better. And that is a great reward. And that is something that will keep us coming back for more. I truly believe that. When you're sitting down to negotiate, now let's just talk about the workplace. There are so many things you need to do beforehand. You can't just walk in. You can't be like right out of college and knock on the CEO's door and say, hi, I'm here. You're lucky to have me, and I'd like to be making a six-figure salary. Thank you. You can't do that. It's just not the way it works. You have to be realistic, and you have to be prepared. It's very important that you go into a negotiation with all your bases covered. Ask any lawyer that you know. They don't just walk in to any sort of mediation or any of their meetings. They have got stacks of preparation. Many hours have gone into that, and you need to do the same. You have to treat it like a little mini job, a little mini project that you're working on. One of my favorite tips is actually to seek out a mentor who works in the field that you're in. Now, I just saw this happen recently with a friend, client, a person I know who was looking to negotiate in a field that's pretty tough to negotiate in. But it's, it is still possible to negotiate. And so what that person did was go and seek out a mentor, someone who's very successful in the same exact field. And she said, what can I do here? I really want to negotiate because I know this is important, but I'm not sure what angle to take, and I don't think the normal rules apply in our field. And that mentor was like, here's what you do. And he was able to give her advice. He had very specific, say this, ask for this, here's what you do, trust me. And it was awesome because she went in to the meeting, followed the rules exactly, followed what the mentor had said to do, and it worked. So I cannot say enough. You can read books, you can listen to me, you can read articles online, but if there's a person in your field who has been super successful, that is your best resource, absolutely, because it's specific to your field. Even better if it's in the same company. Don't be afraid to go, especially for those of you in college who are listening, don't ever be afraid to email someone. You don't have to necessarily say, hi, could you be my mentor? But don't be afraid to reach out. I know when I was younger, I used to do that all the time. I would, if I wanted to learn about a new field or industry, or if I found someone I thought was interesting, I would just send them an email and be like, hi, my name's Lauren, I'm interested in learning more about this. Would you be interested in can I buy you a cup of coffee, or can I come by your office? They always say yes. And now that I'm older and people have started to ask me those questions, I love it. I'm like, thank you for thinking that I'm cool enough for you to email, because we all get older and we all think like, do young people even care about us? Because they're all, in their own Instagram world or whatever. So if you're a young person, don't be afraid to reach out to someone. It totally strokes our egos. We love it. So you really, I would be shocked if anyone ever reached out to a more successful person and didn't get a warm, encouraging response. So don't be afraid to reach out to someone who might be a good mentor for you. Now, the other thing, of course, you need to do, this is just practical. If we're talking about a salary for a work position, you absolutely need to know what the going rate is for your position in the open market. If you have friends who work in HR, they are a great resource because they really know this stuff. So certainly ask them. Or you can use online tools like Glassdoor.com, which has a whole section for salary. You know, I don't know if it's necessarily the best resource, but if that's what you have to work with, use it. Sometimes if you work at a big company, you can even go to HR and ask, what is the going rate for my position? And they might tell you that information. So it's certainly important to figure out how much your position is worth. You know, another good way to do it actually is to start sending resumes out and see if you get any job offers. And that's another way to do research to find out how much your position or your skills are worth in the open market. Definitely do that, because if you don't have that information, it's a little bit hard to make an argument to make more money. Within your own company, within talking to your boss, it's important to make a list of your accomplishments. You don't want to downplay them. You don't want to say, well, you know, I guess I did this thing, but this other person helped me, and it wasn't that big of a deal. No. I'm not telling you to brag. You don't have to be obnoxious about it, but you need to be able to just succinctly say, here's what I've done. They can be short sentences. I did this. I then did this. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but it needs to be very clear, because your boss is busy and your boss has many employees who are reporting to her. So you can't just go in there and expect that she knows everything that you've ever done. They don't always pay attention. They don't always know. You need to show them what you've done. Or if you're interviewing for a new job, don't be afraid to say, these are the things that I've accomplished. It's important. It's impressive. When we're talking about your worth to the company, this is a great way where you can tie in your accomplishments to dollar signs. And this is like speaking the language of your boss, right? So if you can say, I have this accomplishment and it increased sales by this amount. Or if there's some way that you can tie your worth, like if you're an administrative assistant and you know that your worth is adding to the company, you're so efficient, you get your job done so fast, and you're saving money, like maybe you're booking travel for the executives and you're really clever on the internet and you can save them hundreds of dollars by getting a better deal. Those things matter, and that could be hundreds of dollars in your pocket as a result. That's a much better use of the money. You know, anything you can do to increase revenues at your company or save on their expenses is a great way for you to justify getting paid more money. Everybody wins. So make sure you understand that. Please don't do this. This is, I had another friend, and I shouldn't laugh because I can understand where she was coming from, but I had another friend who was working in finance at a huge international bank in New York City. Super, super smart girl. Went to an Ivy League MBA program. Okay, very intelligent. And she wanted to negotiate for a raise with her boss. And so she was role-playing with me, which was a good decision on her part, to practice with a friend. And it just so happened that she picked a friend who does this kind of stuff for a living. So her idea was to say to her boss, it was around holiday time, like it was December, and I guess she was negotiating for her holiday bonus or whatever. And so her idea was to be like, oh, I've been buying a lot of shoes lately, so I really need a raise, or I need a bigger bonus. And that was her legitimate idea. And if that's crossed your mind, you're certainly not alone. But that's a bad idea, because your boss does not care. And your boss is also going to view that negatively, because if you're racking up credit card debt and so now you need them to pay you more as a result, that is a red flag about your responsibility as an employee. So please don't ever talk about that. Do not talk about your personal life, pretty much ever. And don't drink too much at the holiday parties either. But definitely keep those personal details. That is not part of the negotiation, ever. The only part of the negotiation is what matters to the business. What you really want to do, too, is bring up these conversations when you're already in an employer review. You know, if you've got a time where you're sitting down with your boss, you've got a captive audience, this is the time to do it. You got to just take the leap and bring it up. and with all the preparation that you've done, that you've come in with, list of your accomplishments, how much you could be making elsewhere, employee review is really a great time to do it. If you don't get regular reviews, which a lot of companies don't always do, especially smaller companies, then you just need to be a little put a little buzz in your boss's ear, knock on the door and say, hey, can we get a meeting sometime? Put it in their calendar or whatever. You don't get what you don't ask for. So you've got to ask for the meeting so that you can ask for the raise. So make sure that you corner your boss, and they'll be glad that you did. It's your responsibility. You can't expect them to come after you and say, hey, we've been talking about you getting a raise lately. It's not going to happen. So you have to go after them. And then when you do, when you're sitting down into this meeting, don't forget, or when you're preparing for the meeting, don't forget to put yourself in their shoes. What are their goals? How can you add value to them? How can you bring the company value? How can you expand the vision? How can you be part of the team? This is not about getting more money for you. This is about getting more money for everyone. Helping the company reach their goals helps you reach your goals. Everybody wins, and that's the way to really approach it. You want to understand where they're coming from, what they need, and if you don't know the answer to that question, don't be afraid to ask. Always don't be afraid to ask. They'll be happy to share with you, I promise. So a few things to keep in mind. Consider how you're presenting yourself. When you go into something like this, you definitely want to do it on a day where you've had a nice breakfast, drank plenty of coffee, brushed your hair, put on your best outfit. It is important to present yourself in the most professional way possible. When we're talking about sharing accomplishments, do it succinctly. Don't ramble. Practice in front of the mirror with a friend role playing, saying succinct sentences. You don't want to just talk forever. And at the same time, you can take your time when you're responding. So if your boss asks a question to you, and take time. You don't have to just immediately answer. You can sit and think for a second and then respond. You can also get feedback from your boss. Don't be afraid to ask for that. If you're not so sure how you're doing with your job, ask, how am I doing? How do you think I'm doing? What could I be doing better? Always ask for feedback. And seek out new challenges and responsibilities. It's up to you to push yourself forward. So if you're not getting those responsibilities, go ask for them or come up with your own ideas. Especially if you're young and innovative and energetic, don't be afraid to say, hey, here's this idea I have. And they're probably going to say no. But if you say enough ideas, eventually one of them might just stick. And that's how people get ahead in their career. So on the don't side, don't wait to be noticed. You've got to take initiative. Go knock on your boss's door. Keep on top of them. Make sure they don't let you slip through the cracks. Really, really important. Don't over-explain. Don't give too much information. Don't say too much. Just present the facts without flourish. It's just a simple conversation. Don't minimize your contributions. Women do have a tendency to do that. Don't downplay them. Don't make up negative stories in your head. Don't think, oh, my boss is such a jerk, or she's unhappy at home, so she's going to take it out on me. No, go into this with a positive attitude. No negative stories. Don't even allow your brain to go down that path. Don't throw in the towel, It may not happen the first time, and there might be a good reason for that. Don't be afraid to stay at it. Which leads me to the no response. And we'll throw up a quick poll. I'm just curious, how many people have negotiated in the past or tried to negotiate and been told no? See if we can throw up the poll, probably on its way. Because you know what happens? If you're not asking for enough, then you'll never hear a no. But if you're asking, there we go. So at some point you should be getting a no, really. But actually sometimes it really doesn't happen. I definitely know people who have never heard no before. And that's not bad either. So when you're asking for negotiation for a raise or discount, how many of you have ever heard no? And interesting. So seems like most people have heard a no before, but not everybody. So very interesting. About 68 to 31%, 68% have been told no, 31% have not been told no. So, it's going to happen. One of these days you're going to get a no response. And then what do? It's kind of awkward and you're already nervous and now they're telling you no. How do you react? So it's really important to understand why they're saying no. It could be that the money is not there. Certainly in recent years, and even still today, and times have been tough, bottom lines are tight, there's not always money to give to you, especially if you're in a small business. And if that's the case, go back to the goal of what can I do to add value to the business? How can I bring in more revenue or cut expenses? How can I help grow and expand? Your boss benefits from that, and then you can revisit that whole conversation about getting a raise. So it could also just be that you need to grow professionally first. You might be young. You might not quite be meeting expectations. Nothing wrong with that. We all have to start somewhere. So if that's the case, you just need to understand it. Work with your boss, set very clear goals. What can you do to get that raise or the bonus or the promotion? What do they need to see from you? So help them outline that for you so that you know what you can be working towards. And then when you reach those goals, go knock on the door and say, hello, I'm back, and here's what I've done. So it's kind of a circle. We're just kind of doing this over and over throughout our work career. So you certainly should just continue to follow up. Your boss, again, they're not going to come seek you out. You need to go seek them out. Of course, going back to the mentor idea, always helpful. If you are told no, you can go back to them and say, they said no to this, how would you respond? And that can be really helpful, even if it means that you can't use that advice for 6 months down the road until you're able to ask again. An absolute last resort, but sometimes it happens, is that you just need to look for another job. And I've seen this happen before with plenty of people, and sometimes that's really the best way. It may be that the place you're in right now doesn't value you, and there might be somewhere else who'd be very happy to pay you a little bit more money. So if you get a no response, it might be time to look elsewhere. But try all the avenues you can at your own job before you start, jumping ship. So that was a lot of information that we just covered, a lot of stuff about negotiation. And of course, I could talk about this all night because I love it. So I'm sorry that we've gone over, but I think most of you have stayed with us. So we really appreciate your attention. And when we pass out or when we do the drawing for the book, if you don't win the book, I'd encourage you to go to your library, look up anything by Linda Babcock. She's wonderful. Or any negotiation books in general, because the more you educate yourself and the more you practice, the better you're going to feel about approaching this. Because like I said at the beginning, it is a $500,000 necessity. This is not something that we can just leave on the table and continue to leave behind us. So I do want to mention, and we'll take any questions if we have any, though we have gone over time. So always feel free to send your questions directly to the Royal Neighbors Foundation through their website or through my website. We're happy to help. There's plenty of good articles and calculators on the Royal Neighbors Foundation website. And you can always find us on Facebook too, Royal Neighbors Foundation, or mine is just Lauren Lyons Cole. And we try to keep money on your mind so that it's nice to touch in with people and just remember that you're supposed to be doing something about personal finance, negotiation, whatever we can do to help. And I'll let Sarah tell you about our next webinar, which will be coming up in June.
Thank you. Yes, we're very excited. We're trying some different things. I hope you enjoyed tonight's negotiation webinar. I know I did. We are going to do, with summer break coming up, it's a great time. Kids have summer jobs. So we thought it would be wonderful to talk about raising financially responsible kids. So would love to have all of you join us and bring your young ones with you, and that'd be great. Lauren, thank you so much. This was a great webinar. If you have missed any of our previous webinars, this was the first one for 214, but the rest of them have been recorded, and you can find them on our website at royalneighborsfoundation.org. And definitely like us on Facebook. You'll get reminders of the upcoming webinars, and you will also, for everyone who has registered, you will get an email with the link of the recording. If you had others that could benefit from this information, you can forward it on to them. We would encourage you to do so. And speaking of registrations, we did go ahead and draw for that book. And the name we picked is Elise Davis. So we will contact Elise and get that book out to her. And congratulations on that. We are going to have a survey pop up shortly, and we encourage you all to fill that out. Give us your feedback. Let us know how we can improve. And also, you'll have an opportunity to help us continue doing these webinars free of charge. There will be a link to donate 99 cents to the Royal Neighbors Foundation, and we hope you will take advantage of that. So, again, thank you, Lauren, and thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.